So what I really want to go over is, I guess, like just share a bit about the way that we look at nutrition, and some of the things that we notice with people when it comes to nutrition, things they struggle with. And I guess some starting points, because nutrition is such a broad topic and people tend to get so confused because there's so much information out there. But we believe that it can be simple and that it doesn't have to be an all or nothing approach as well. So that's really what I want to focus on today, is just keeping it really simple and practical. So I guess a little bit about me and my journey with nutrition. I don't think I've ever had really bad relationship with food. I guess we all go through our own journey with it. I had parents one side of the family, alcohol, cigarettes, all the processed food, minimal vegetables. And then on the other spectrum was my mum that I live with growing up. And she's she's vegan now, and she's always been very health conscious. So they're two ends of the spectrum. And I feel like our parents have a bit to do with our own eating habits and the way that we're brought up, and the way that we sort of view food as well. I've been through a bit of, I guess, times in my life where I've had been on restrictive kind of eating approaches, especially when I was doing bodybuilding. So I learned that that's not sustainable, and that over time it does have a negative impact on your body, and that it can really mess around with your hormones and things. So that was around the time that I decided to become a personal trainer. And then further on from that, I decided to study nutrition as well, because I seen people going through it and clients, and I wanted to understand how I could help them a bit better with, I guess, with not struggling so much with nutrition and making it more enjoyable. Because it's not fun when you think the only way to lose weight is to restrict your calories and pretty much starve yourself to the point where you feel like you've got no energy. And I just thought there had to be a better way anyway. So a lot of what I've learned, I've obviously done the study, but also learned from experience with coaching people through their own challenges with nutrition as well. So I'll spend about 10 to 15 minutes going over some of the slides. And if you have questions along the way, just feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions. Or if you don't want to ask over voice, you can just type it to me in the chat box as well. And then I was hoping to leave some time at the end to go over any questions that people might have specifically to them, and just work through, I guess, how you can start to implement the steps that we follow with nutrition into your own life, and begin to kind of start going through that process, because it's an ongoing process. And you don't really need to complicate it much more than the process that I'm going to go over today. So I mean, Josh and I talk a lot about why we don't focus on the scales when it comes to losing weight, because it generally encourages a negative focus of being restrictive and needing to do more cardio and things, rather than we prefer to not focus on that so much, but focus on increasing your performance and getting stronger, getting fitter, and doing all of these things where you need to nourish your body to help it perform. And then as a byproduct of focusing on your health, the weight shifts, and also through working on yourself and looking after all aspects of your health as well. So a lot of people like to start at the top of the pyramid and focus on supplements, specific meal plans, and things like that, which I'll go into a little bit more. There's nothing wrong with meal plans. I think it's not always a starting point though. So I feel like people need to start more at the pyramid here, which at the bottom we've got just becoming more active, maybe doing more steps and being more physical in everyday life, and just starting to eat a bit more simply before going into any other approaches to nutrition that you can choose. But some questions I had was around how to prepare for the week, how to put nutrition into everyday life, what foods are best to eat, how much to eat, and one around if you're struggling to lose weight, and this person feels faint and weak when they are trying to lose weight, which probably means that they're not eating enough food, and how to remain consistent, and also around cravings. So I'll just cover off on these now before I move on to the next slide. So preparing for the week, I actually go into that a little bit more down the track, but just, I guess, starting to schedule and set the time aside and doing what works best for you is the best way, because some people might want to prepare for the whole week and freeze food and then pull it out as they go, but that might not work for other people. So they might just want to take leftovers for lunch the next day and just cook a big dinner and do that every night, and have a shake or whatever for brekkie. But however you prepare for the week is what works best for yourself. Planning meals ahead can be helpful, because then you know what to get in your shop, and putting it into how to put nutrition into everyday life. It's part of the 5-step process I'll go through. The best foods to eat, I've got a slide on that, but basically it's whole foods, I believe, and leaner foods. So this is how I feel the food pyramid should look, and it's a lot different from the traditional food pyramid. So starting with vegetables, and less packaged foods, leaner sources of meat and fish and things, as well as like your non-meat or non-dairy sources of fats and proteins, like legumes, like nuts and avocados and all of them as well. And as you move up the food pyramid, I guess the other occasional foods that you would have, but rather than having it the other way around. How much to eat, it depends, but it's not all about doing the calculations. Like, there are calculations you can use, which I've included to figure it out, but the easiest way to know how much food to eat is by measuring through your hand. So I've actually got a slide. I'll go over down the track on that too. Remaining consistent is part of that process, and cravings as well. Usually cravings come from not eating enough during the day, and most people, as the day goes through, they get cravings towards like 3 o'clock or after dinner, and that's usually because they haven't had enough for one, protein in the meals that they're eating, and whatever they're craving, they usually need the healthier version of that. So if it's carbs, perhaps more like sweet potato and healthier versions. If it's things like chocolate, or on carbs as well, like maybe it's actually the sodium, or maybe it's a little bit of dehydration, so salt, as well as having more water. If it's things like fats, then healthier fats. If it's sugar, then maybe, especially if people are working out, more fruit and things to fuel their workouts as well. So otherwise it can be a bit to do with habits as well, habits around eating. But I feel like the more food you eat throughout the day and the more you eat what your body wants, then it's not going to so much have those cravings. And if we're more mindful, using things like journals, diaries to keep track of what we're having, then those patterns will come to light as well. If we're reaching for things at certain times of the day, most people will not eat enough food Monday to Friday, but then they'll overeat on the weekend. So then they're not in a true calorie deficit. So when it comes to energy balance, you've got obviously the food that you're ingesting and taking in. You've got other factors in there, but if you look at that and then you look at energy out, so energy in through food, energy out through like daily movement and things. Sometimes people aren't eating enough food to match their output, but then so that might be during the week. But if you're looking at a whole week, then maybe they're actually eating a lot across a 7-day period, and then perhaps the solution is trying to hit 10,000 steps a day or something to help increase their output, because really if they are in a true deficit, then they should be losing weight, unless they've spent a lot of their life in doing diets and rebounding back and forth, then it can make it a bit harder. But yeah, that's a little bit on energy balance. I touched on protein. So protein's important for every kind of goal. I won't go into that too much because I feel like we cover it quite often. But a lot of the time people say it's too time consuming to do a food diary, when I don't believe it truly is. I feel like there's other blocks around that. It can be helpful. I guess it depends the way that you're viewing it. People feel they need to count calories and measure, which you don't have to do. But if you're sort of starting, further in like the beginning of the journey, unless you're like 10% of the population that is moving into like that athletic elite level and are wanting, specific results, then they may have to do something like that. But a lot of people are also quite scared to eat more food, and because they've been restricting their food for so long, they no longer feel hungry. So it does take time to rev up the metabolism, so slow increments and increasing food, because we don't want to be under eating, especially below our BMR, because then we can come into all sorts of metabolic challenges and hormone challenges and things. But yeah, there's usually a lot of limiting factors that we're all working with in our environments or in our knowledge around food. We can always educate ourselves around perhaps like the way that we're doing shopping and things. I don't know, there's a lot of things that come into life that can throw us out. So there's always something that we can look at and address to help us improve what we're doing. Often if people aren't preparing ahead as well and skipping meals, then they'll get those cravings. And yeah, it comes back again, like I said earlier, it's usually people are craving when they've like gone 4 hours without eating food and they're just feeling flat, and then they're reaching for something that's going to give them a quick sugar hit or a caffeine hit, which is a bit of a spiral effect. But yeah, sometimes it's also our goals. So commonly with clients, perhaps their goals don't mean enough on a deeper level in terms of the discomfort or the effort that's required to actually get a result. One thing I do want to really talk about is the importance of sleep. And Josh and I listened to a podcast today which reiterated to us the importance of sleep. So that was perfect timing, because it was good to hear it again. So this often gets overlooked, yet it's one of the most important things, and it has even more of an effect than our training and nutrition does. But it also can have negative flow-on effects to those things too. It can impact our hormones, our ability to lose body fat, to build muscle, to recover, to cleanse our body, to process toxins, to generate the testosterone levels and the human growth hormone that we need to also get positive body composition results. So the recommendation is 7.5 to 8 hours per night. And the time of between 2 and 4 a.m. is very important, because that's when we're usually in our deepest sleep, which is where we get a lot of these benefits. So a lot of people aren't sleeping long enough to reach that point in their sleep, or there's some disruption between 2 and 4. So supposedly it's 18 to 19 degrees is optimum for sleeping, as our body temperature varies. Dark light, no screens, low light, and at least an hour prior, making sure you're not eating, because then your body thinks that you need to be awake. Jumping off TVs and phones and stuff like that, and even leaving your phone and technology out of your room, so that that's not having an effect on you, because the EMF, the electromagnetic, and also what it does to our eyes and things, it can cause us to have a really bad sleep. So this is obviously a challenge for parents with young ones and people who work night shift, and we train a lot of nurses who work night shift, and they understand the challenges that has for them, or holds for them in terms of body comp. But yeah, there's health issues that can develop from lack of sleep, and it makes us feel like shit. I feel like this is one of the most important slides of today, which is the process that we use, which is from my course, Precision Nutrition. So whenever we are working with anybody, we like to get clear with them on step 1, what their goal is and why it's important, and then work backwards from there. So if there's a weight loss goal, breaking it down, if it's 6 months to a year, if they want to lose X amount, then how much is that by 6 months, or how much is that monthly? Then looking at weekly, and then what that person needs to be doing daily to be able to achieve that goal. So step 2 is identifying whether they are ready, willing, and able. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how ready are they to make the change? How willing are they to make the change? And how able are they to make the change? Then we usually go through a nutrition recall, where we get people to write down what they're sort of eating, just to get an idea of where they are at, and where some of the gaps might be. So that's the step 3. Any specifics to them in their lifestyle and what they're experiencing, and providing tools to help with those specific things as well. And then step 4 is building momentum with them by choosing small steps and strategies that they can stick to for at least 2 weeks. For 75% of the time, I would say, is a good start. And just choosing one thing that will have a huge impact, that's easy to implement. So yeah, it could be something small, I need to eat more vegetables at lunchtime. That could be the thing for 2 weeks, and just that thing. And then you get to step 5, where we're tracking and reassessing in 2 weeks' time. Was it easy enough to stick to? If not, going back and looking at how to make it easier to stick to, or choosing a more advanced version of this, or a new step, and then so on and so forth. So another 2 weeks, maybe it's protein at breakfast time. Cool. And then rolling with that. It's usually easy to achieve these things, but that's good. We don't want it to be too hard. And it may seem boring, yet this is what consistency is. Consistency is a bit boring. It's what we do daily, and it is what helps us to achieve results long term. And we believe this is the best way to get success. But everyone's doing really well with their training, but yeah, trying not to overlook these other influences, like what I spoke about before. Sleep is a big one. So how to apply this today? Follow the steps that I just mentioned, 1 to 5. So we can do this now if you like. I'll just slow it down a little bit, and we can each just pick a couple of things. So to start thinking about a goal that you might like to achieve, and it can be anything. And then once you've got your goal, just thinking about why that goal is actually important to you, like what's the flow on from achieving that, and then what is the downside of not achieving that, like what's it holding you back from. And then just try and think of, you can maybe go through this in a bit more depth afterwards and elaborate, but just think of a couple of things with what your nutrition looks like at the moment. What are a few small things throughout the day that you're noticing about your energy levels, about how you're feeling, about your cravings, about your skills, about your preparation or the quality of the meals you're having and the sources of the different carbs, proteins, fats, vegetables, fruits and things, and jot down maybe two or three strategies that you feel could really help you to change and get some traction with your nutrition. So just 3 real simple things that are going to be really effective. So it could be focusing on a meal. It could be focusing on like your meals out, maybe alternatives that you can have, or maybe one less meal out throughout the week. Maybe you need to eat a little bit more. So which is a meal where you feel, or a gap in the day where you could add something in. It's entirely up to you what you choose. And then just choose one of those things and just think to yourself, can I stick to that 75% of the time for the next 2 weeks? And then from today in 2 weeks' time, just check back in with yourself and see how you went. If that was all good, maybe you want to build on that, or maybe you want to look at one of the other things that you wrote down. And try that out and follow the same principle. Accountability partners are really great for helping you stay on track and for just checking in and making sure that you're following through with what you want to do, really. I feel like intuitive eating and connecting with the food more is a great way of bringing more awareness to what we're eating too. So preparing our food and having fun with that, or going to the farmer's market, doing things like that just to get more in touch, maybe planting like a little veggie patch or something like that. Just I guess in this process, try not to restrict. There may be some discomfort in changing the way you currently do things to obtain a different result, but there doesn't have to be heaps of discomfort. It's not all or nothing. So these are a couple of tips that I feel are helpful to keep it really simple. So tip 1 would be to eat protein with every meal. Tip 2 would be to eat more whole foods. Tip 3 would be to aim for 3 meals a day with vegetables. Tip 4 would be to include the foods and treats you enjoy and still make it fun. And tip 5 would be to focus on consistency through going through that process. And just adding in there something I mentioned in the beginning, the more that we work on ourselves and bring more awareness in general, the more we're going to have a flow-on effect to every part of our life, including our food choices. And although it can be challenging to work on ourselves, in the long run, it makes things a hell of a lot easier. So the hand method is a great way, rather than focusing on counting calories, rather than, really having to be specific with meal plans and things. You can use your palm size, 1 palm per meal for females, maybe 2 for men. It depends on what size you are. Vegetables, carbohydrates, and fats. So that's there. And then it's just pretty much double for guys. And then that should give you roughly the amount of food that you need in order to hit roughly what you would need to hit. Otherwise, there's a calculation you can do, which is if you want to figure out your calories and macros, and then maybe do a bit of a dietary recall and then see where you're at, and is there a big gap? Are you overeating? Are you undereating? So that's to multiply your body weight in kilos by 2.2 to get the pounds, and then you multiply this again by your activity level. So if you're doing minimal exercise, or if you're doing moderate 3 to 4 times a week, or if you're very active, and then whether your goal is to lose, maintain, or gain. So you'll pick a number there, and that would give you your calories. And then I'll send this out to you guys anyway, and there's a recording of this meeting, but there's the different percentages in terms of what certain body types might need to hit in terms of protein, carbs, and fats and things. But tools for clients of the tribe. So for any clients of the tribe that we train, you're welcome to do the nutrition questionnaire just to gain a bit of insight into where you're at. We've got the fortnightly catch-ups, which are a great opportunity in person to see where you're at. We've got My Fitness Pal if you're wanting to log your food, which I can see and provide feedback on. I'm happy to give you a copy of an ebook I've written when it comes to nutrition, and also to send out these slides in this recording. I'm also happy to chat one-on-one with anybody, or if you have questions, always feel free to reach out. We do weekly videos, we do a lot of posts, we send out emails with information, and it usually includes some stuff about nutrition. And we also have a lot of blogs about this topic, and a lot of recipes which are healthy on our website too. And I'm happy to give recommendations around podcasts as well. And Precision Nutrition is the company that I did my course through, and they have a lot of great content that I really resonate with. So you can find heaps of great stuff on their website. But if you have any specific questions right now, you can either hit the chat and let me know. Otherwise, you can unmute yourself, and we can have a chat now. Let me see. How exactly does undereating affect your hormones? So I guess what it is it slows our metabolic rate. Usually as a result of undereating, we lose muscle and we gain body fat because we're not feeding our muscle enough protein and things to hold on to it. And then what that does is it slows down our ability to process foods and things. We start to become sluggish. If we're not giving our body the certain amino acids, then it's not going to be generating as much testosterone. If anything, it will start, generating more estrogen, and we'll start storing fat in areas that we struggle to lose it. So that's a biggie. Also, it can affect like thyroid function and things if we're doing it for too long. So you've got nowhere to go really once you're undereating. And like for myself, I found that when I was really heavily restricting for a certain period of time, I got really lean, but then my body freaked out because it was in fight or flight mode. there was a lot of adrenaline, you know, being in that space, and cortisol levels and things. So when I did start to exit out of that process, my body just rebounded. And that's usually what happens when you diet and then you stop dieting, because you can't diet forever, and then your body freaks out, and then it packs on more weight than when you began, and then it becomes harder and harder to lose. I hope that helps. I'm not big on the knowledge of hormones, but yeah, I know that you should at least be eating your BMR, which is the amount of food that you would need to keep your bodily functions happening if you were, like, I don't know, lying in bed doing nothing, before you added in your activity level. Jane, do you have any questions? Good. Yeah, feel free to message me afterwards if anything comes to mind. But when I coach people one-on-one, this is a lot of what we go through with the nutrition, and implementing certain strategies and things to help as well. But that's pretty much it, guys. Just a quick recap, you know, the certain foods, the effect of sleep, stress, 5 steps to success, the hand method, and how to apply it to your life. So I always like to ask people, how is your current nutrition approach working for you? The Western diet isn't the greatest for getting in shape. So there's usually room for movement there. Or if people want to commit to something, then I say, show me that you're doing that, and how can you show me that you're doing that? So proof is always in the action and in the results. Yeah, so just some things to think about. But yeah, I'll share this with you guys and let me know if there's anything. But I feel like I covered the main things. There's heaps of shit we could talk about, but this is the most important stuff, and it's good to keep it really simple. So thank you for joining me, guys. I hope you're doing well in this strange week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No worries. I'm going to stop sharing this now. Thanks, guys.